Hello, everybody. My name is Sam Weeks, and today I'm with Vibhav. Now, the backstory here is that Vibhav and I worked together like 2 years ago and to apply to MBA programs. And the narrative that we used back then was this idea that Vibhav, who had a buy-side background, is going to use an MBA to progress his career in the buy-side side of finance, in private equity and venture capital, that side. And so now Vibhav is at INSEAD and he's midway through his MBA. And so what I want to do is catch up with Vibhav and talk to him about how the MBA is helping that plan and whether there's been any surprises come up along the way. Vibhav, lovely to have you here.
Thank you so much, Sam, and very, very happy to be here as well.
Brilliant stuff. Could you maybe start off by just telling us about your background?
Sure. So I've been quickly in the VC space all throughout my work experience. I worked first in Bombay in India for about 4 years. Did the entire deal cycle from deal origination until deal portfolio management. So all in all, it's been a fantastic experience working in Bombay, but I've always wanted to explore the international aspect of business itself. So while I continued working with the same company, I worked with the portfolio company in Dubai, and that got me even more excited. And that's when I started understanding and learning about MBA schools, and especially those that had a more international background and diversity within it. So that's what drew me to INSEAD in specific. And that's why I applied to INSEAD, moreover, because my work experience actually molded me into going to a business school. Right before the INSEAD experience MBA program started, I'm in the Jan to December intake. I took a conscious call to, and since I wanted to progress into Europe and work in Europe, I took a conscious call of being in a European city, specifically Northern Europe, to try and understand on ground, what working in what venture capital would be like. So I luckily, with a lot of effort, to be honest, got an internship with Antler based in Copenhagen right before my INSEAD experience. So I worked with them in October until December of 2022, just to get really an on-ground experience, really understand the market, and really, try and just not network, but actually try and build relationships and try and understand what really is the culture and the ethos behind the industry there. So that was my idea and my plan, and that's how I felt even more stronger and better to get into INSEAD, and made me even more happy and more focused towards the idea of moving to Europe and moving into venture capital in Europe. So yeah, that's pretty much my background.
Okay, awesome. So can you talk to us about what exactly you do in P and VC, and why it's an attractive post-MBA career for MBA applicants?
So I work in the venture capital side of things, even though so basically private equity and venture capital is similarly categorized as buy side. For me, in the venture capital space, where we talk about lots of investments in tech, in startups, and unicorns and bubblesors and whatever you name it. So what my job is ideally is to, and what would be most likely the situation for most INSEADs, most students in general, MBA students in general, would be the first step would be sourcing. So in venture capital, getting a good deal is the most important first step. For example, let's say I have a friend from London Business School or from ISAD or from HEC who's a brilliant guy, who's an entrepreneur since forever, and he's going to start something again. And I have a personal relationship with him, and I really know him, but he's not really marketed it yet that he's going to start one more business or one more startup after his experience at MBA. But I know this, and I've been talking to him, and I've realized his idea and started his figuring out what he's trying to do. And now I have one angle, right? So I have one catch in my fishing net, wherein when I go to venture capitalists to my potential recruiter, to my potential employer, that there's this one company, one solid pedigreed entrepreneur who's currently just getting out of business school and he's going to start this again and he's going to do this XYZ. It fits within your venture capital investment thesis. It fits within your ticket size. It perfectly matches your ideal investment philosophy, your sector, so on and so forth. This would be very interesting according to me, and this is why. So that is how you first try and entice your employer, right? It's more about getting the right deals. And this is just one example, but you can source in different ways. So to answer your question, the first role would be to source potential investments. Following that, you have a very rigorous process of the screening of the entire of the company, depending on what stage and what cycle it is at and in which industry it is. So we follow an entire process of screening the company, the industry, pitching it to the investment committee. I mean, we can go into details of this if required, depending on the next set of questions from you. But there's a process involved in that. And so from deal sourcing, then you go towards analysis, you go towards portfolios, you go towards screening, you go towards finally making an investment recommendation, whether it gets passed or not. And then as a VC fund, we invest in the company. Mm-hmm. And that again has a next set of processes, which involves legal diligence, legal execution work. And then we follow on that with managing the portfolio, managing that investment. So that's pretty much the entire cycle of what I have done in the last pre-MBA, right from deal sourcing until portfolio management in all its stages.
So what you're saying is this is why it's such an attractive post-MBA career compared to some finance roles, investment banking, for example, where maybe you're involved in one sort of niche area of a deal. What you're saying is you are involved in everything from sourcing all the way through to managing the company, which is exposure that you only really get in VC and not something that an investment banker or an auditor, for example, would get the chance to do.
Ideally, yes, because in VC, we tend to have smaller teams. And if you're in the investment team, which is ideally most likely what every student would want or every potential VC applicant would want, is to be in the investment team. And this is ideally the process and the job description of a VC, post-MBA VC role, because unlike banking, which is much more structured, much more process-driven, in VC, it is structured, but it is unstructured as well, in the sense that you have to do a lot of things, but all changes depending on the deal that you have. Yes, so it is very different from banking and does involve lots of different generalist expertise that you require in different spaces.
Yeah, understood. Okay, and so you're close to the VC recruitment process. Can you talk about how VC firms recruit? Because it's different from investment banks, isn't it?
Yeah, it's extremely different, especially it's not even comparable to banking or consulting, right? Because it's just a different field altogether. So you have to appreciate how the bankers do it and the consultants do it versus how a VC would do it, because each has its own merits and each has its own demerits. So the VCs, as I said, they tend to have smaller teams, and they recruit for either expertise in that sector that the VC fund invests in, or they recruit for, for example, they know that the person that they're trying to recruit is going to be good at doing different things, right from people management to, Excel modeling, right? So you can be a generalist as well as a specialist in one industry. So one of my friends who's currently in the INSEAD program with me, he's a physicist and he wanted to get into VC, and he did eventually get into VC. He got an internship right now, but he got an internship in deep tech, particularly focused on in his particular area of expertise in physics. I don't really know what they do, but they invest in something really high tech, which I would not understand or get an interview for, because it's just not my expertise. So what VCs look for are different things. And like I mentioned, sourcing is a very important criteria. Now, this is done organically and inorganically, in the sense that you really have to make an effort. You have to really look for these deals which are not really very out there, in the sense that you have to really align the VC fund that you're trying to recruit for, and see what they need, and align that with what kind of potential companies they can invest into. So it's very specific to the VC. And if they don't have a VC internship cycle, or which most likely they don't, VCs don't really hire VC interns unless it's like a 6-month or a 3-month internship. So they really want to see what kind of passion you bring in, and that passion you can only showcase by showcasing them companies and startups that they could potentially invest into, right? So, and then you can only tie that in with trying to understand the psyche of the investment manager, the fund manager, and that you can get by looking at his Twitter or her Twitter bio, and like trying to see what they're talking about on their Twitter posts, and then get a understanding of what they're really looking for. And that's how you tie it in the sense that, okay, these kind of companies would interest this fund, and then you try and make that connection. And that's how they really recruit. They don't really so it's more a push than a pull. You really have to showcase your passion for it.
So they don't have like a formal structured MBA recruitment process where there's a recruiter that comes onto the campus, shakes everybody's hand. We have 10 spots. We're going to give 4 of them to INSEAD. There isn't that structure.
Unfortunately, not in any part of the world. Not just it's just not a Europe thing or a Paris thing or a France thing. It's just, that's not how they function in any part of the world. So
this is one of the reasons why I caution applicants who are looking to apply, who are applying and they say, oh, I want to go into VC. And I tell them that, yeah, you can apply to VC for sure, but maybe don't make it a core part of your profile if you haven't already got some sort of in, because they don't have these structured recruitment processes, as you say. So it's a lot more about who you know and your introductions and your own initiative and your own network, which doesn't suit everybody. Yeah, it's interesting you say that. Okay, can I ask you about the criteria? Like, what kind of person is VC looking to hire, both in terms of their professional background, but also like their skills and like their personality?
Yeah, they're really looking for, like I mentioned, VC is a very people-oriented business. You have to maintain relations with your investments, the founders, right? You have to really look for these companies, look for these founders. And there are like you've heard of startups that raise so much money, right? And so if you take a step back and be in the shoes of the founder who's raised about 20 million in Series A. And he's got like solid founders, solid backing, and he can get more money next year, or she can get more money next year. Now, as a VC, we are the ones who have to really showcase to that startup that, we'll be really good for you as a good fit. So as VCs, we really need to showcase our expertise, what we can bring to the table for that startup, right? And that involves building a relationship with that founder, with that company, showcasing what kind of network we have. And that all involves a lot of people management. It involves a lot of networking within the industry, right? It's just not managing your team and managing those founders. It's actually managing and understanding and talking to people from across industries, across sectors.
Conferences and things?
Conferences, informal chats, like, for example, if you're trying to invest into a startup that is in, say, deep tech or in AI, right? And we really want to understand what kind of valuation multiple to give them, accord that company. Like, a lot of this information, we'll only get information about what kind of valuation they've got, but not really the multiple. So to understand what kind of multiple to give that startup, I need to speak to, say, Sam, who's a VC fund partner in another VC, and be like, ring him up and say, like, you did this deal a couple of weeks ago, what kind of multiple did you give, that company? And that's how you actually get really involved within that space, because then you actually know, which would be called, non-public information, right? So there's a lot of these skills that are required, which are more psychological and not, technical in nature. There's a lot of technicalities required, but that comes with the job and with the learning. VCs are like VCs don't particularly look for any specific VC skill set that is technical skill set.
Okay.
Yeah. So a consultant could fit in, a PE fund, a consultant could fit in, and a banker could easily fit in because they have those skill sets that can be used, the technical ones.
Okay. So how does an MBA help then? So you could argue that, you're born with soft skills. You had soft skills before you did your MBA. So what does an MBA give you?
Yeah, but it makes
the applicant.
It really helps even further fine-tune your soft skills, right? Like the amount of focus I gave on electives, as well as understanding the different sides to soft skills, like for example, I've taken courses and electives on making authentic decisions, psychological issues and management, things that I would have probably not thought of, but those nuances that are really what change how I behave post MBA, right? So like actually trying and understanding, okay, wait, this is what I was doing wrong before, this is how I should do it now, given this new skill set that I've acquired through the MBA process. So, and also just like simply being on ground and actually meeting and interacting with VCs, interacting with founders, interacting with startups, interacting with my own colleagues within different countries, being part of the VC PE club, all of those things tie in eventually to make a consolidated effort from your side. So it really helps in if you're good at soft skills, then it really helps in actually polishing that.
Sure. Now, if I remember right, you have a CFA, right?
Yes.
So how did you find the hard skills of an MBA, the finance electives, for example, the valuation classes?
Yeah.
How I assume you already have that technical knowledge. Did you still take those classes?
So in INSEAD we have the core classes in P1 and P2, which is the first 2 periods in our program, which we can't miss unless you take an exemption. So then I did not take the finance exemption, but I could most easily have, because it was fairly basic, especially since, like you mentioned, I had a CFA certification. And what I did in P3, which is just the period before my summer break, which is what I'm going to continue even going forward, is focus on all the less financy stuff, like not do anything finance driven. So I haven't taken any course in my third period in finance, because there is just so much more to learn and experience and that they have to offer, that finance wasn't a core criteria for me. But from what I've heard from my friends who've all been in non-finance programs, non-finance backgrounds, is that honestly it makes them equal to me, in the sense that the things they learn are really fantastic. So yeah.
So you talked about how INSEAD sort of has prepared you for a VC world, and you obviously went through the research process where you looked at a whole load of schools. You looked at the US, you looked at Europe. Tell me, in your research, how did the MBA landscape compare when it comes to a VC applicant? Were there some schools that looked better? What were they? And how did you approach that decision?
Honestly, if to give you an honest answer to this, it's, if you really, really want to be in the VC space and you really want a better shot at it, it's better to be in the US, because US, there's no market like the US for VC. It's just at the size of the country, and it's one standalone country, even though they might seem, disparate in certain issues, but it's a union of states and it's just a very large economy to not consider, especially if you're in the VC space, because there's a lot happening there, right? Mm-hmm. So for me, it was which market would be most ideal, for reasons that are separate to this conversation and this interaction. I did not go to the US, but I chose Europe as a region to focus my VC experience, and I've realized that the VC space industry in general in Europe is really catching up. It's nowhere close to the US, let's be honest. That's just market and data and statistics that prove it. But there's a significant push by governments across countries to push the tech space and VC space in general. So if you want, I can share more details in that, but I can rest assure your listeners that countries like France, outside of, I'm talking, everyone would focus and ascribe tech to Germany, but I'm not focusing on Germany. But, the impetus of tech given to France or Italy or, Denmark or even Spain, for example, is crazy. So there's a lot that's going on, and I'm quite happy with my decision.
Cool. And so, okay, so what if people are they get into business school, let's say they get into INSEAD.
Yeah.
They start, the course is going to start, say, the following September, and they've got like a 6-month window.
Yeah.
They're like, right, what can I do to start warming up, to start getting ready?
Mm-hmm.
If my goal is to transition into VC, what do I do for those 6 months?
Yeah. I would say first thing, take up an internship if it's possible.
Which is what you did, you said.
Yeah, like take up a pre-MBA internship for a couple of months. Even if they don't pay you, I didn't get paid, let's be honest. I didn't get paid, but I still did it because I knew there was value to it. So take up an internship. If that doesn't work out, like I mentioned, start networking, start looking at potential startups on LinkedIn, start looking at VCs that you find interesting, right? So, there are a ton of VCs out there, whichever country you go to, with a ton of different AUMs as well. Try from those 50 VCs that, you can read as a list, right? Try making a list of 10 or 15 in that 6 months, and try actually interacting with some of them after you've made some progress in understanding, some startups that you've liked. All of this takes some time and effort. So, those 6 months if you can actually spend those 6 months before your MBA, or even those 3 months before your MBA, doing about 50% of what I mentioned, you'll be at a much, much better footing than, most other applicants who are just choosing to say VC is my goal and my plan B if consulting doesn't work out. But it really doesn't work like that.
Yeah, right. So what is VC recruiting like at the moment? Obviously, interest rates are going up. Investment banking is arguably getting squeezed a little bit at the moment. How's VC recruiting?
Just like you mentioned, right? And everything is getting squeezed at the moment. But there's still a focus on seed and Series A or pre-Series A funds, which are continuing to invest. So if you look at the data, it showcases that lots of seed funds are still continuing to invest and not take a pause. But a lot of the later stage funds, VC funds, are taking a pause right now, and not recruiting, not fundraising, or not investing. Just they're investing, but like maybe one deal, and the frequency is much lower. And that's got to do with a lot of issues, and all the macro environment is the same for each industry, so that's not changing. It's pretty it's not bright like it was about a year ago, for sure.
Okay, interesting. So as candidates are thinking about maybe saying, I'm going to apply to VC and using that as their narrative, like I always say, that you need to really be researched on this and really show some detail. And what you're saying is, go and speak to the funds in the time that you can, get a feel for which areas you find interesting, and also be realistic about who's recruiting, because not everybody is recruiting in this market, which I think is a good pragmatic lesson.
But I'll be honest with you, if you speak to the funds after you've done some solid research and got some startups or some kind of recommendations, and you try and interact with them, they'll be much, much more receptive to even to interview and to look at you as a candidate. Because if you have the right skill set, they'll just be more than happy to interview at least. But the thing is, in VCs, they get so many interview applications. The way to differentiate yourself is really understand how you can, differentiate yourself from not just being an MBA applicant. So yeah.
Fantastic. Vibhav, absolutely just so grateful for you to just shed this light on the industry. I think this is something that so many people should or need to see and need to know, need to get this insight, because it's not it's not a, as you say, it's not investment banking and consulting that everybody just sort of immediately is drawn to, but it does have a bit of an aura about it, doesn't it? VC, it has an attraction. There's something sexy about it.
It does for sure.
And it's nice that you're putting some real life detail behind that. It's really, really helpful. So thank you very, very much. I will, let's stay in touch. And if anybody was wanting to reach out to you, how would they maybe contact you? LinkedIn?
LinkedIn would be a good way to do it, or even my INSEAD email ID if
okay. So we'll put that in the comments of the All right, awesome stuff. Vibhav, thank you so much for your time. Really, really nice to catch up, and good luck with your next few years of recruiting and VC magic.
Thank you, Sam, and the best of luck to all the applicants. Thank you so much.
Take care.
Bye-bye.